Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Little Modular. Today, we will take a peek at this incredibly inspiring module by Mystic Circuits called Tree. Well, I'm not sure if it's a mystical circuit in any way, but it sure is fun, and I mean a lot of fun. At a first glance, it seems like it's nothing much. It's deceptively simple. Because what we have in here, in essence, is a switcher. And this kind of devices often seem to be overlooked and underestimated. Many people think, what's the big deal? I mean, it just routes one of the inputs to some outputs and that's it. What's so exciting about it? Well, it could be super exciting, especially if you have something like this in here. Because you can think about Tree as a switcher or a switch on steroids, because it does have all the things that you would expect on a switcher, but it also has some extra features that set it apart from similar offerings from other manufacturers. So let's take a look at the front panel and see what we have in here. First of all, you need to know that this here are 8 inputs or outputs depending on the way you use it. And there you have 1 output or input. Again, depending on the structure of your patch and what you want to do with this module. For the newbies and people who have no idea what a switcher is, a quick explanation. Basically, you have 2 ways to operate this module. You could either send 1 signal that is connected here to 8 different destinations that are connected here. Or you could do that other way. You could connect 8 different signals here that will go to this output right here. But one important thing is to remember that it is not a mixer or a mult. So if you connect 8 different signals in here, they will not be summed to here. You will only have 1 connection at a time. So it could be either this going to here, or this going to here, or this going to here, or this going to here. Or other way, this one can go to this output, this one can go to this one, or this one can go to this one, or to any other of these. Now, which one goes where depends on the clock. You can see there's the clock input right here, and when I connect it, it's moving downwards, okay? With a specified rate from the clock. And each time the LED appears next to the input or output, it means this selected highlighted input or output is routed to this common input output. So now I have this connection, now I have this connection, now I have this connection, and now I have this connection. Simple. Okay? And that is the basic functionality that you would get from most standard switches. But Tree goes far beyond it. First of all, we have a reset function. So whenever a gate appears in here, this module will reset to the first step. For instance, I have my choices joystick connected here, which has a gate output. And whenever I press, see, I just pressed right now, again and again, whenever I press it, it goes to the first step. So you can control it manually, or you can, for instance, sequence it. Doesn't matter, it just accepts any gate. Then we could do a similar thing with the backwards. Whenever a gate appears at this input, it will just go backwards. I'm holding the gate on choices and you can see it goes backwards. If I let it go manually, it will just cycle forwards again, downwards actually again. Then we have 3 additional inputs down below here, and these are called shift inputs. You can see there's +1, +2, and +4 on each of them, and that means that if I connect a gate in here, it will skip either 1, 2, or 4 steps. What I can do, for instance, I can patch to the +2 gate, And now when I press it, you can see it just skipped 2 steps forward. But then when I release the gate, it goes back to the signal where I have actually pressed it. So you can perform some really nice switching with that, okay? And you can, of course, have different signals connected to all 3 of them. And you can sequence them, or you can just play them live. What I like to do here is connect all those 3 plus the reset input to my pressure points, gate outs, and just play with those 4 plates. You can get some really nice patterns this way. And that's pretty much it as for the basic operation of this module. One thing to mention here is that it takes all kinds of signals. It could be gates, triggers, CV, and audio, whatever you want. Now, enough talking, let's dive into some real-life examples. The patch I have here is one of my favorite ones, and in this scenario, I'm sending different trigger patterns to one output. So now, these are my 8 inputs, and this is my output, which goes to a percussion module, which is not super exciting, but I thought, it needs to be simple so we can clearly hear what it does and how does it work. This is the bass drum for reference. Now you can see that I have 8 different sources providing trigger patterns for my percussion module. It's all sorts of different things. I have Metropolis gate out, I have some LFOs, which are all synced to my Pamela workout clock. I have some Eloquencer and Erica Synth's drum sequencer patterns, all kind of patterns from different sequencers. Now, when I connect the clock to here, you can see that each time the LED advances to a different input, we have a different pattern fueling my rimshot module. Now, this is cool by itself already, and it's easy to imagine, that you can change the patterns on those different devices, and you would get different patterns switching through here. But it's more fun when you start to apply things like reset, like I just showed you. So I can just, manually reset it. You can, of course, sequence it. And then, as I said, I could just, take output from the... I could just take the outputs from my pressure points and, start having fun like this. And now, if I press those different plates, it's going to be really different. And I can have some different variations, as you can see, just by pressing those different plates, or maybe resetting, or maybe going backwards. Alright, like so. Now I have switched the clock, so it's faster. So we have more dramatic and faster changes. Of course, nothing stands in the way of clocking this with irregular clock. I can, for instance, take a pattern from my Erica Synth's drum sequencer, and you can see that the inputs are switching in an irregular way. So we can actually set a pattern for switching different patterns. So it's a sequencer sort of way. If we combine it with the resetting and using those 3 inputs, it's just incredible amount of variations, fun, and making different beats on the fly. Perfect tool for improvisation. What I have done here is I have set up the module in an opposite way, meaning that now I have one percussion pattern that is fed into this common input-output, and it is sent sequentially to 8 different outputs. Now these outputs are connected to different percussion modules, some VCAs, so different modules fed by the same pattern, which is provided by one of the Erica Synth's drum sequencer outputs. And I'm also using all of the available inputs for modifying the sequence. Now, the first and the most obvious thing I could do is I can just change the pattern on Erica Synths. Okay? Of course, just as in the previous example, I can provide a variable clock in here, so it will become even more erratic and more fun. And again, as I switch the pattern, it will behave differently and produce yet more variations. Just so we can hear it better, I have this reference click in the back. Okay, we have the steady rhythm, and I can now jam against it. I can reset it again. So as you can see, the fun never ends. And that's the whole idea behind it. You just need to figure out, how to implement, how to incorporate this module, and it will find its place into any patch. There's one neat trick with this setup, because if you think about it, you are getting this pattern on all those 8 outputs. So what if I, for instance, connect this out, that it's free in here, and connect it to some of the controlling inputs, for instance, reset. Okay, so now every time it gets this one, it will just reset it. We could do it the same way with the backwards, for instance. And we can also do some crude pattern changing and just switch the different cables. It's not as elegant as changing the pattern on the sequencer, but still you can get some nice and surprising variations just by switching those cables in here. That is also a very inspiring and often surprising way of achieving different patterns. I should record this one, it sounds really wicked. Now, the other trick I really like with Tree, and that's the one I often use, it's to use it as a modulation distribution unit. So the whole idea is that I'm connecting different modulations to the inputs. So again, the other way, and then the output from here is taken to some destination. I have a sequence which is triggering bang digital oscillator, which is then fed to the Chaos Devices Belgrade filter, and we will be modulating the cutoff frequency on this filter with those different 8 LFOs, envelopes, different kinds of modulations. It's all synchronized because I like it that way, but you can also have it unsynchronized if you wish. It's also quite interesting in that scenario because you can have a synchronized switching, but the modulation itself could be unsynchronized, which could result in some really interesting semi-random patches. This is how it sounds on its own. No modulation applied so far. And let me just point out about a thing that I haven't mentioned yet. As you can see, there is no clock in here, but the sequencer, the switch, is moving anyway. That's because I'm using the shift inputs, and they can work on themselves without the clock. So it's a little twist. Okay, now if I use this, it redirects all those different modulations to the frequency cutoff on Belgrade. And you can hear that this patch is already a lot more interesting. I have changed the pattern a bit, adjusted the filter and some of the modulations, and again, another cool pattern. It just never ends with this module. And this is just half of the story. And that's because this also does wonders on audio sources. And let's go right into the audio rate stuff, which could lead to unleashing some hell. What I have here is I have connected, as you can see, a clock, but in the audio rate. So as you can see, without audio yet, it's traveling really fast. This is Dixie oscillator. It could go really high within its range. And I have connected some other oscillator, its bigger brother, the Rubicon, and this one goes out to the mixer. And take a listen, just by varying the frequency on the Rubicon as well as the clock on the Dixie, we can have absurd amounts of different timbres. It also works really nice with the shift ins. It gives you yet another flavor. Or you can of course just connect different oscillators here and there and see what happens. Like so. Okay, and again, by varying the frequency on both of the oscillators, we are getting some really nice different timbres. Now I can connect other oscillator in here. This one is organ accumulator, and this changes the balance again. Now we can try a fourth one, bang, again. Let's try another shift, which will give us again different feel. Another shift and different feel. The amount of possible timbres is just breathtaking. Now the last patch that I want to show you today is one of the simplest, but I'm really loving this one. You are connecting some audio signal in the common input-output jack right here, and then you are routing this signal to 8 or whatever different effect units, and then just switch between them. Let's see what happens. I have a kick for reference going on in the background. Let's start this patch right here. By the way, I have just used about every effect unit I have in my studio. So I have here 1-bit multi-tap delay, I have depth first spring, I have ZDSP by Tip Top, I have multi-dimension by feedback modules again. I have also the Black Hole by Erika Synths, and you are also hearing the Herb Verb, and there is also the Lyra 8 FX. I have no idea which one is which here, but take a listen. I'm switching manually, so I'm not using a clock here. I have the manual gate. This is Herb Verb, I believe. Or maybe this. This is Black Hole. If you are looking for some fun, for some movement, and some variety in your patches, doesn't take much place, looks ace, and it will definitely spark your imagination, especially when combined with this Anna module by the same company, which I will review in the next installment. I'm done here. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions and suggestions for patches or any experience with this module, please leave a comment below. And of course, if you found that video useful and interesting, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye bye, take care.